Welcome to the Soul Tribe Podcast. The Soul Tribe Podcast was created to help you navigate through the world of spirituality, wellness, and self-development in an easy, grounded, and relatable way. We break down everything from the AKASHIC records, manifesting, spirituality, and so much more. We want to help expand your boundaries and bring the spiritual world to you in a fun and easy way. Get ready to be inspired with tips, tools, and easy to digest information. Let's do this. Welcome back to the Soul Tribe Podcast, everybody. Today I have a solo episode with myself, Lorena, and I'm not really exactly sure what I'm going to call this episode, but I'm thinking something like you have all the answers within. Something like that, because it feels like really the main thing I want to come across with this is going to be on the short side, this episode, because it's probably things you already know, but it's just kind of a reminder. It's putting it in your face a little bit to make sure that you're paying attention to these things in general life and your healing. But this idea of like, sometimes we do need that assistance external to us. I sure as heck do. Lucia does as well, but we don't rely on that to get all the answers. And this really came up because I see this pattern come up very often with many clients of this energy of like needing to rely on somebody for all of the answers. And not only that energy, it's also this energy of like, I can't trust myself. It's a very disempowering energy. And on the other hand, it's also this, it could be also very, very much linked to what you've experienced growing up, where you didn't have a voice, you couldn't speak up, you couldn't trust yourself. Maybe you were given so much kind of this dynamic of your family that made you feel like you couldn't trust yourself, that you didn't do things right. So then that later on translates to this dynamic that you have with healers, therapists, counselors, coaches, guides, where you can't make a decision or do anything without that person telling you what to do. And I can only speak from my own personal experience as a healer, as an AKASHIC record reader, as somebody that, you know, my main purpose and mission is to be of service to others and to help and assist in the best way that I can. But my thing is like, I always want to do that from a place of empowering others to know that the reading really is just validating something that they're already feeling, that they can trust themselves and that they have the answers within, right? So I don't feel like all of these people out there. So when I say people, I mean like healers, coaches, teachers, guides, counselors. They don't necessarily all have that intention. And I think we need to be very just aware of when we start working with somebody. Obviously, always, like we always say, work with the people you feel called to work with. Generally speaking, if you're listening to your intuition, you're going to know who you're going to gravitate towards and who you want to work with, because the person you just vibe with their energy. You just feel a pull towards that person, and you know that they can help you. I do that to this day. I do that with not only the courses I'm going to do, with the people that I'm going to get a reading from, with my therapist, like all of it. I apply that for everything. And that's helped me start to trust more and more, you know, how I need to move about in life, the decisions I need to make. So really it's this idea of like, it's great to be able to have somebody every now and then, or maybe more often for some of us. It depends on what we're going through. We are all very unique. We're all transitioning through very different things. There are different kinds of people that can help us, but being really aware that we're not falling into that disempowered state when we are working with somebody, because I think that can be a very slippery slope for some of us, where all of a sudden somebody's telling us something and then we fully believe it, even though we know inside of our gut that doesn't feel right. So it's not giving somebody all of the power. It's allowing somebody else to empower us and letting them, as for example, if we're going to get a reading, allowing them to kind of guide us, but not expect them to have all the answers. And I think this also is that tough love that I talk about quite a lot on the podcast, in my readings, in my YouTube videos, of sometimes we really need to like step it up and say, this feels right. I'm going to trust it, or I'm not doing the work I need to do. So let me just be aware of what's getting in the way of that and being able to take action when I need to. And the same thing goes for this, like be aware of why you're getting a reading or a healing, or you're going to a counselor or a therapist. And I think there's moments in transitions where sometimes we're led to believe that we have to do this every day, or we have to do a session a week or something like that. It's like, well, does that feel right for you? And sometimes the consistency for a period of time can be very beneficial, 100%. I've seen that with physiotherapy. I've seen that with therapy itself, and then I'll take a break and I'll go back to it because I'm guiding myself by my intuition. What I feel like I need a break to be able to listen to myself, process those things, and then move forward. But I know there's been periods of time in my life where I've had to be like, all right, I know I need to sit with this person, with this guide, with this therapist, with this counselor, and I know I need to do some deep work, and I need somebody to guide me through this. But I'm not allowing them to find all the answers for me. I'm going home. I'm journaling. I'm listening to myself. I'm meditating. I'm doing the work. That's what I mean, right? It's like not completely letting somebody else take the power because we feel insecure or we don't trust ourselves. And I think this is also be aware of like, how is that person that you're going to, how are they empowering you? Really ask yourself that. Are they helping you to understand yourself more? And I think really when we go or feel called to see a healer, a spiritual teacher, an intuitive, a reader, a coach, whatever that is, a guide, a counselor, we're usually needing a few things, right? What do they do for us? So I think in general, this is kind of a list I've kind of made what I think as long as we're within this list, and this could be way vaster than this, but these are just some of the main things that I feel that if we're in this area of things, if we're gravitating towards this, then we're on a good path. So if we're looking for somebody just to guide us, like I have some questions, I need some answers, I want them to guide me, I know what I want to know, and I know what I want to ask, and I'm open, my energy is open to being guided, but also not being able to listen to myself at the same time. The person we see also should provide us with insights, right? They should provide us with something that will help us leave that session where we can do our own work. They should also help validate something that we're feeling or that we know, but not trusting maybe fully internally. So for that, I think that's super important, because I myself go to a reading is I want my emotions, what I'm going through, to be validated in some way, but not in the sense of like the person's validating that what I'm feeling is okay, but validating that this decision I'm going to make energetically aligns with me in some way. But I know ultimately I'm going to need to make that decision. The person's not going to tell me what to do, but they can validate that, yes, this is what you're going through. This might stem from this. This might be brought forward from this. If you take this step forward, it may bring you to this energy. I think in that sense, and I think each healer will help you in different ways, and each coach will help you in different ways. And it's not giving you the answers, but validating something that you're going through and being able to, listen and acknowledge your pain, what you're going through, the emotions, and just be able to like hold space. I think that's a huge part of why we go to somebody. They create a container. They allow you to feel safe, for you to be able to open up and be vulnerable and say anything. I think this person that we go see, we should also help us understand ourselves at a deeper level with no judgment, right? I think judgment, if we're seeing somebody that's judging us, then I think red flag, right? There should never be judgment in any of this. It's just complete unconditional love and just acceptance, and tough love in that sense of like, are you taking the steps? Are you taking care of yourself? Are you doing what you need to do? And in that same sense, they should be piecing things together, helping us connect the dots, helping us understand ourselves at a deeper level. Means that we need to understand what happened, and where we're going, but not, like I say, not giving us all the answers. No one can. And I think there's something so valuable in us finding those answers within ourselves. Because if somebody's spoon feeding us everything, what does that serve us in many ways, especially in our spiritual journey? If we want to get to this place of trusting ourselves, loving ourselves, honoring ourselves, aligning, we need to figure out what that looks like. And somebody can help guide us, can help bring us to that answer. But ultimately we need to feel that. We need to work through that ourselves. They can like lead us to the water, but then we're going to have to drink, right? And I think this healer, counselor, whatever that is that you're seeing should also help us see parts of ourselves that exist, but we might not know. And that could be our gifts. That could be parts of us that we might not know have trauma or that went through things. And this could be super deep, or maybe just at a superficial level too, of like, being able to love ourselves for certain things that we are, but we don't see that, or we don't want to see it. Be it something that was difficult or something that's just super easy for us. So I think using this kind of guideline, like I believe that if some of these are in line when we see somebody or seek help from somebody or seek a service, I think in general, like I can't speak for everybody, but I think these are really good points to think about when we're working with somebody. Or even ourselves as healers, because I want to look at both of those aspects. I don't want it just to be like when I go see somebody or when you go see somebody. There's a lot of people that listen to this podcast that are on this journey of being of service to others. And we talk about this quite a lot here, not only as maybe Akashic record readers, but healers and intuitives and psychics and mediums and everything, right? So we have to know where our place is too. And I think this goes into some ego things, right? When we go into our ego, into fear, into doubt, and looking at worst case scenarios, right? I think a lot of us will be like, well, if they don't come back, then, for example, if I'm a healer, if I give this person everything that they need to hear, then they may never come back to see me. Well, good job. Right? Good job. If that person doesn't have to come back and see you ever again, and that doesn't mean that they might not go see somebody else, but it means you help them so profoundly that they feel like they can do things on their own for, even if it's for a while. That's amazing. That's the place we want to get to as healers. We want to empower people, but we want to also be there for them when they need us. And having that like letting go energy, right? I'm not trying to control you. I'm not trying to do everything for you. I'm trying to help you get to the answers as well. Sometimes question you. There's a little bit of everything there, and it depends what kind of Akashic Records is very much about channeling. So when I'm in a session with somebody, I talk quite a lot, but I also know when somebody's coming that needs to kind of I need to hold space for them to listen to them because they need somebody to hear them. And that itself might be the healing aspect that they needed in that session. So this is where our intuition can be so important as healers, right? And I want to go a little bit into, when we do start depending on somebody else, doesn't matter who that is, when we depend on somebody else to give us all of the answers, this is a tricky place to be in. Because first of all, that means we're not listening to ourselves, we're not trusting ourselves, we're not aligning with ourselves. And this is where I think it's a good moment to maybe just stop. All of this without judgment, right? I'm going to just stop. I'm going to reflect. I'm going to bring awareness and understand that no one can give us all of the answers. They can guide us. They can help us, but no one has all of the answers. And it's also a really tricky situation in the sense of when we're putting somebody up on a pedestal to give us all of these answers, because people aren't perfect. Nobody's perfect. And especially when we're talking about channeling, for example, and we're talking about the future, or specifically I'm talking about the Akashic Records here, there's so much involved with free will that I can tell you something today, but then you decide you don't want to listen to that and that you don't want to heal that. You don't want to look at it. You're not ready. And then your path goes a completely different way. And it wasn't that I gave you the wrong information. It's that you didn't want to deal with it. And I say that to people all the time in reading, this can go many ways, but if you do this could go this way. It's not 100%, but there's a probability that it'll go this way, but that's your choice. And this is what I'm talking about, empowering people, helping them understand that they have free will too. That's huge. And I think some people feel so disempowered, like this is what's happening to me, the victim mentality. And as healers, as guides, as counselors, as coaches, we're there to help them understand, no, you're not a victim. Maybe some of these things that happened to you were horrible and they were difficult, and I can completely have compassion and empathize, but I want to empower you. I want you to understand that you have free will. You can change things. Things can shift significantly for you if you start to listen to yourself. If somebody can start to help you trust yourself. And this is why I believe personally, and I think Lucia as well can say this pretty securely or confidently, that's why we love the Akashic records, especially level 1, where you learn to read your own records. This is you listening to yourself, helping you start to find the answers within, heal yourself. And even if you get readings from other people, because even when I learned level 1, I was still getting readings from people every couple of months, sometimes more often. And I know I needed that guidance because I was working through a lot of deep stuff. I still am, but it helped me start to understand that I could trust myself. So I would say making sure you're doing several things, right? When you're on this healing path and when you're looking for answers or when you're trying to align with yourself or heal things. How can you start to maybe get guidance from others, but also empower yourself by the tools that you're using, your routines, your habits? I always talk about journaling here because I feel like journaling's helped me, especially when I did therapy years ago. I did 2 years of therapy when I was really deep into really realizing I did not love myself. I was having a really difficult time making decisions that felt aligned for me, even just making decisions point blank. I was so indecisive, and now I can certainly say that when something doesn't feel right, I can say, no, I don't want to do that. And maybe I still get that feeling of oh man, what are people going to think? Are they going to think I'm boring, or they're going to think I'm that I don't like them or something. And it's oh wow, I can process that internally at that moment that I'm saying no, for example, and make sure that I'm aligning the words correctly when I outwardly say it and be look, I'm really tired or this or that, whatever. And I can internally process that and be no, I'm not taking this personal right now. This is about me listening to myself. And if I do this thing that I know I don't want to do, or I know doesn't feel right for me, it's only pulling me further away from myself, from my truth. And we have to really work at that every single day. So, I'm all over the place now. Sometimes we do need guidance. That is, I understand that. I need that. Like I say, I'm going to therapy now. But I know sometimes that gets mixed in with many other things, with opening my own records, journaling, getting an Akashic record reading, going to a psychic, going to a medium, family constellations. I talk about that as well. I think that's such an amazing tool for many of us. And we have to figure out what helps us work through things. Part with somebody else and another part with ourselves, because this is where I think many people might have the wrong expectation, right? When you go into any kind of session with anybody, the person's guiding you, the person's helping you find answers, the person's helping you connect the dots, understand yourself at a deeper level, maybe even do some actual healing in the sense of energetic healing. Even the Akashic records, connecting to that fifth dimensional energy is very healing. But then it's just as important what you do after the reading. And I talk about this on my YouTube, and we talked about this on an episode. What happens after a reading? You need to do that work. You need to go deep. You need to keep processing. And if you need somebody to guide you through that, great. But you need to make that commitment. That's empowerment. That's being proactive. That's saying, I'm ready. And I do see such an interesting dynamic in that, when I compare, right? When I get feedback from clients and they said, wow, I need to process this. Perfect. Process it. Take your time with it. Don't be hard on yourself. But when it's time to start dealing with things and start to work through things and start to journal and start to meditate and start to cry and let go and heal and know when it's time to get a reading and know because you're listening to yourself, that's when the magic happens. And then the other group of people that are expecting that session or that reading to be everything. That's a lot of expectation. And that usually will let you down because you're already expecting somebody external outside of you. That's disempowerment, right? I'm giving somebody all of the power, all of the knowledge, all of everything. I'm putting them up on that pedestal. I'm expecting them to heal me, but then I'm not doing my own work. That's like this idea I always had, like, you can go to therapy, right? We can all go to therapy. But if we're not open to really seeing our things, our trauma, really analyzing and seeing things and talking through them and feeling the emotions without judgment, with complete love and compassion for ourselves. And it's uncomfortable. It is not easy. Like, there are days that I leave a session, I'm like, oh my gosh, like, this brought up so much stuff. Like, how am I going to deal with this? Like, I have to go in, I have to figure this out. I need to write it out. I need to cry. I think if you put that person up on that pedestal, then you're more than likely not to take action because you're expecting them to do all the work. And it's never like that. We should never expect that. There's always something that we need to take with us afterwards. Always. Even if it's a Reiki session, there's still processing that we do afterwards and realizations that we come to and things that we say and people that we contact. That's the mentality. That's the mindset that we have to have. And some of these issues that I see coming up, with people getting readings and healings and things like that, is that dependence I was talking about and not trusting themselves. If we're in that very low vibrational energy of like, I can't trust myself, great, a reading can help, but hopefully the person you go see can help you find those answers by processing things with them, with that professional, with that healer, with that coach, whatever that is. And they can give you the tools, and maybe you have some kind of feedback with them where you can do your own work and then you check in with them, right? And I think the dependence where I'm not okay if I don't see you, that's not a good energy to be in. That doesn't mean that maybe there's moments in our life where we do need somebody to really lean on because we're in, we can be going through so many different things, and we can have had a really difficult life, and we can be going through a really difficult moment. So I understand that could be moments of our life. Sure as heck, I've been through that. But if that's 24/7 our entire life, then we have to really check ourselves and say, wait, let me reflect on this for a bit, right? I think there's also the fear around not finding the answers on our own. I think that puts us already in this place of disempowerment and being able to say, I could find these answers on my own. Right now, I just might need a little bit of help. But I'm willing to do the work after the session. I'm willing to start to listen to myself and even ask questions about those things I'm feeling, because then that's already giving it some kind of like love, right? And I think when we're expecting somebody else to validate our experiences, our emotions, everything, like we're literally expecting them to tell us it's okay, then we need to make sure that we're doing that with ourselves, because this is where we're giving the other person, we're putting them up on the pedestal and we're not doing our work. And that's a scary place to be in, because imagine somebody saying things to you that, not everybody has the best intentions. That's the reality. And this is the episode that we wanted to do with Lou, with Christos and Foster, about false gurus, right? I say gurus because I think that's like all encompassing, but there are people out there that don't have good intentions. And I don't think that's the majority of people, but I think maybe also the training that they got, who helped them, how they show up for people, it might not be what aligns for you. And we just have to be very aware. We're not putting all the power in somebody else's hands. And if somebody's trying to do that, like disempower you, then that's a huge red flag. I want to say that. And I don't think this is probably the case for many people, but I think these are just things that we need to think about. And I think in general, like I said, I think most people do have a good intention. They really just want to be of service. I see this all the time in our community, people that are maybe holding themselves back from not showing up because they're scared. They don't think that they're going to do it good enough, or that they're not ready. It's like, you're ready. And you're going to do it with so much amazing energy because you've been on the other side of that. We have to always remember, like, whatever we've been through is going to help us help others, always. But I think this episode really came up for me because of a few clients that have come up, and there's been some things that has really affected them And I don't like using good or bad, right? I don't necessarily like that, but it negatively impacted them because of things that someone made them believe, someone made them think, and they didn't have anybody to empower them. And I think it is so important for us as healers, guides, intuitives, coaches to realize that this is why it's so important to understand that we need to respect other people's information, respect their emotions, their feelings, and know that we're in this really interesting kind of place when people come to us. It's something that we have to take very seriously, not put pressure on ourselves to be hard on ourselves or like we'll get like stage fright, but know that like we have to make sure that we're doing our own work because we can't let our ego get in the way of how we show up for others. And this is why even like when I connect to the records, when I'm going to do a session for somebody, that's one of the first things I say. I ask that my ego, my belief systems, my ideas, my Lorena brain doesn't get involved in this reading, in the information that comes through. I want it to be purely the person's records, purely their experiences, what they've been through, what their soul needs to come through and say, what their spiritual team needs to say. I'm just a channel. I'm here as a person to communicate something. And I think some people don't have their ego in check. That's the problem. And I think that can be very complicated. And I've seen that time and time and time again. And that worries me because the deep work that we each have to do to get out of that place sometimes is pretty tricky. And we can get out of it, of course, but maybe there's a lesson in that, right? And I truly believe that things happen for a reason, but if I can help you see that you can empower yourself. And I think this goes for both ways, right? If you're getting a reading or if you're doing readings or sessions for people, this is our responsibility as healers, as people that are being of service to others. We need to know these things. We need to make sure that we're showing up for people with the best intention. This is intention, 100%. And I think there's another part of this of like gauging and being able to be intuitive to the other person's energy and knowing what the person needs so that we can show up for them in the best way possible for them, for what they need that day, that moment, nothing more, nothing less, just exactly what they need. And we can only do that from a place of listening to ourselves. That does not come from ego. That does not come from our mind. That does not come from anywhere else but our intuition, from being guided from a higher realm, from our higher self. And I think being able to really listen to ourselves is such an important thing, whether we're getting a reading or we're doing readings for others, because that can help guide us in the right direction and have the right intentions. And I think this is also a big reason why I felt called to offer so many different things. So I do obviously AKASHIC record readings, I do psychic, mediumship, I do hypnosis, and I started doing AKASHIC counseling sessions, which I find amazing. Obviously there was a need for it because people were coming to me and saying, hey, do you not do this in this way? I was like, no, but I could. And I do channel in them, but it's really interesting for people to have a space within the spiritual realm to be able to speak, to talk through things, and to also come to those realizations, and for them to feel empowered of like, what you're feeling is this, this, and this. What do you think about this? And there's a back and forth in that, which I think is really important for some people because they might not trust themselves at all. And that back and forth could help more than just an AKASHIC record reading sometimes. And I think, it's different for everybody. We're all going through the different things. We have to first validate our own emotions, listen to ourselves, awareness, and being conscious of whatever it is that we're feeling. No judgment, no nothing. I think that's it. I didn't want to make it too long, and I really felt like this is an interesting topic, like I said, because some clients were going through this and it kept popping up. And it's something I'm kind of passionate about because when we teach the records for level 2 specifically, this was something we talked a lot with Lou of like the responsibility around not only opening the Akashic records, but showing up for people. You know, we're opening the records, somebody else's records. It's their information. It's their energy. We're a channel, but at the same time, we're holding space. We're helping them. And for us, it was really important to make sure that people understood that we have to work through our own things, even meanwhile, right? And we're doing that constantly through the readings that we get, of course, but also we have to be committed to our own work, our own embodiment of that work. And I think another part of that really is this idea of like, I don't know how to like say it, I guess, in the right words, but of the responsibility aspect that I was just saying. Like, we don't want to do things with a bad intention. You know, I think, and this is where ego can get in the way of like fear and things like that. And not in the sense of like channeling, but in the sense of like, you know, I'm scared of these things happening. And then all of a sudden you're not showing up for the person in the right way because you feel like, I don't know, like no one comes to mind really, because I don't know a lot of people like this. And I still feel like people have good intentions in general, but they get caught up in things maybe. So this is why when we listen to our intuition of who we need to work with, that we really need to guide ourselves by that. Because if we're just following somebody because they're trying to sell you something, for example, right? Then I wouldn't do that if it just feels like, oh, well, they're saying they can help me, but I'm not feeling it. Then don't go that avenue. Go with the person that you feel could help you. That's your first step in listening to yourself. And I always feel like we're guided to the people that need to help us. I've been guided to every teacher, to every person, and it's all been super aligned because that's one thing that I have trusted. And I know what doesn't feel right in that sense and what does. And it's taken time. But I think in certain aspects of my life, that's been something that's made it easier. And I'm like, if I can do it in this aspect, I can do it in all the aspects of my life, right? Even though sometimes I need somebody to hold space for me or help validate certain things that I'm going through. And it only just gives me that confidence to make the decisions or move forward in the way that I was already feeling. That's what I mean, right? But the responsibility aspect I was just talking about is like, as healers, we have a responsibility to show up for the person with the right energy, with the right intention, with the right embodiment, and being able to just really surrender to that, to that session, to that moment, and being fully there for that person. And knowing when we can't, right? And we talk about that, like, when I'm sick and when there's certain things, if I'm too emotional, like I will cancel a reading. That doesn't happen often, but I will do that because I know I cannot show up for that person in the right way. And I'm not going to just do it because I'm just going to do it because I said I was going to do it. No, you have to show up with the right energy. That's what I mean. The responsibility aspect of it. So I think this is important for both sides, and knowing where you stand in that, and these are our values, our morals. This is how we show up in the world in every way. So it's something that we really need to put time and energy into, and figuring out who we are and how we're going to show up. And that's a whole other episode probably. But anyway, I hope this helped bring some awareness to something that maybe you were already thinking about, or maybe somebody's been through in your life. Feel free to share this episode with somebody you think that needs to hear it. And yeah, we'll be back next week with our normal episodes. Lou was away for a couple of weeks, taking a much needed break. And, yeah, we have our Patreon book club coming up, our book club meeting, because we're doing quarterly like readings, like we pick a book. So that's coming up next month. We're really excited about that. And we're also really excited about all the new Patreon members. We did our giveaway the other day, and we had 2 winners, obviously one on our Instagram, one on our Patreon, and we're really excited to do those readings. So yeah, there's a lot going on in the background, and yeah, I'm working on a new YouTube series where I'm bringing people on. It'll be video format. We're going to be talking about stuff. It's just been a bit of a crazy time right now. But I'm hoping that'll come out very soon, within the next month or so, where I'll be able to start posting those. In the meantime, if you guys have any questions or need our guidance, we do readings, we do individual readings on Zoom, or we also do dual readings where we both open people's records, like we were saying. So if you are interested in those, I'll put all those links in the show notes. And yeah, if you guys have had an experience with something like this, like I said, maybe not in the positive sense, more in the low vibrational sense, feel free to reach out to us and tell us your story. I'd love to hear. Personally, obviously, that's why I'm talking about this. I think it's really interesting. This whole thing, right? So feel free to reach out, and I'm here to support you and hold space for you. And I'm gonna send you all a big hug, a big kiss, and we will see you next week with a new episode. Bye, everybody.